What have I done?
My allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy!
Your powers are weak, old man.
I have a bad feeling about this.
When the time comes, he must be trained.
Like you trained his father?
Hello there.
Hello there, and welcome back to episode 3 of Kenobi Cast. My name is Bryant, and tonight I am joined with...
Robbie, the Qui-Gon, just Robbie.
And Brendan. I was curious where you were going with that, the Qui-Gon... But,
yeah, I don't know.
I was going to come up with a question for today, but after watching this episode, I don't think we need a question. I think we just need to jump straight into the episode.
So good.
Yeah, the episode begins. Cargo ship. Obi-Wan and Leia are on the cargo ship heading to Mapuzo. Obi-Wan is like meditating and trying to communicate with Qui-Gon, and we get to see this insane segment where Darth Vader is putting a suit on. And I know in some of the other movies, we have seen Darth Vader get his suit put on, but this one just felt so insane. It might have been the tubes coming out of his back, but it was just such a sick moment.
Everything about it was just badass, like to the point where you're seeing the fact that he's got no arms, no legs, and they're showing like all the mechanical pieces of him going together, and truly seeing that like half man, half robot just being put together. And I especially love seeing, and again, we're going to have that guy in the car yell at us, but whatever that beep boop bop box that's on his chest that like lights up when it was being like inserted like onto his chest, like I don't know what it does. I'm sure it keeps him alive somehow, but it's for, I was never sure like if it was on the outside of the suit, but it's almost like a little Iron Man looking thing.
What do you guys think those buttons do?
I think that's his control panel. Controls his breathing.
What if like
a badass voice?
What if like one of them orders like pizza at any given moment?
I think it's like a voice changer.
Ooh.
Speaking of voice changers,
yes,
James Earl Jones.
Hell yeah!
Oh my god, I was so excited. I wasn't sure like what they were gonna do with that. When he started talking, I was like, oh my god, it was so good.
Now this might offend some people, but there was a question in my household when James Earl Jones talked, and we had to Google it. We didn't realize that he was still alive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we both looked at each other. We're like, are they just using audio from previous Star Wars to make this voice happen?
Well, that's what I thought at first, like thinking maybe that's what it was. But the fact that there was just so many episode-specific lines being said, I was like, there's no way. It definitely has to be him. And I knew he was still alive, but I was afraid that you were going to be like, my wife was like, oh my god, that was Mufasa.
Remember.
I just think it's crazy that they took all the way till the third episode to show us the hero of the story.
Yeah, so I gotta ask you, because you're kind of a Darth Vader fetish type of person. I mean, how was it for you just to see your hero?
Oh, it was just so good. He was being put back together. I can't talk about it until we get to the later scenes, but there's so many things I want to say about Darth Vader.
So that's fair. Jumping back into the story, during the flashbacks, we kind of hear everything from the prequels and everything from the past couple episodes, and it ends with Obi-Wan saying he's coming, Master. Kind of like as a last-minute ditch, Qui-Gon, if you're going to show up, please, I need you to show up right now. And then we jump into Mustafar, where Vader is at his castle, and Vader's talking to Reva, and I found it very interesting. She told Vader Kenobi killed the Grand Inquisitor.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't like, yeah, I killed him, which I think Vader might have respected a little bit. But no, I guess that just kind of fed into Vader's hatred for Kenobi.
Interesting.
Yeah, I knew as soon as she killed the Grand Inquisitor in the last episode that she was going to blame Obi-Wan for it.
Now, this does bring me to something that I kind of picked up on, and there's a lot to talk about in this, but there's a line in Star Wars, and it's kind of like a rule when it comes to Sith, that there's always a master and there's always an apprentice. There's never more than 2 Sith alive, because as soon as the apprentice becomes powerful enough, the first thing they do is try to overthrow the master. And that's why Darth Maul tries to overthrow Palpatine. Vader tries to overthrow Palpatine. He convinces Luke. He's like, together, we can rule the galaxy. But somehow in this timeline, there's a ton of Sith. And I think we're kind of seeing that same thing, though, that there can only be a master and apprentice, because Reva, I think, wants Vader's position, if we're being honest.
I don't think the Inquisitors are considered Sith. And I think, honestly, to Vader, they're beneath him.
Ooh.
They're Force-sensitive people, but they're not powerful enough to be Sith.
So it's like considering like on the Jedi side, there's like Jedi Knights, and then there's like people that train in the Jedi ways.
Yeah, like exactly. And I truly think like even when like Vader's talking to Reva, like they're definitely beneath him.
Oh, absolutely. just the way he talks down to them too.
Now, we did mention this is where we hear James Earl Jones's voice, and I was curious going into the series, with Hayden being involved. I was like, are they going to allow Hayden to do the Darth Vader voice, or what are they going to do? Are they going to blend the two voices? Do you think we're going to get Hayden's voice at all, or do you think we're just James Earl Jones till the end of the show?
Ooh, that's actually a really good question, because I same thing, I kind of contemplated the same. I was excited that he was reprising the role as Darth Vader, but again, when you got the suit on, you hear James Earl Jones's voice, so it may be interesting if he actually tries to talk maybe with the helmet off, if at one point the helmet comes off. I mean, it's clearly him when he's suiting up. You can tell it's Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, that's the only thing I would assume, that if we hear his voice, it'll be when the helmet comes off.
Now, this is just kind of me speculating, and I'm hoping here. I think we hear Hayden's voice, but I hope it's in flashback form. Like, I would love to see these guys do a flashback to before Vader, and like Anakin and Obi-Wan together. And maybe then we hear Hayden, but I agree with what you guys are saying now that we're talking about it, that if he's in this suit, it's got to be James Earl Jones's voice.
Yeah, and we did hear Hayden Christensen's voice a couple times, with Obi-Wan having his meltdowns.
Correct.
So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past him to do a bunch of flashback stuff.
I'll say, unless like I said, that voice box, that little thing on his chest is a voice box. He can change his voice.
What if he hits the wrong button and he's like, hey?
He's just super whiny. Yes, master.
Yeah.
Yes, master.
So from there, we go back to the cargo ship, and Leia asks Obi-Wan if he can use the Force to make the ship go faster, and Kenobi's like, that's not how it works. She's like, what does the Force feel like? How does it work? And Obi-Wan says, have you ever been afraid of the dark? How does it feel when you turn on the light? And Leia says, I feel safe. And Obi-Wan responds back and says, the Force feels like that. This fed into Robbie's theory for me from the last week's episode, that I think Leia is going to discover that she has the Force sometime in this series.
Yeah, I agree, but I'm still going to say that Leia caught herself, but the more that we watch the show, when Brendan was talking about how, they can sense each other, and even like in the later movies when Darth Vader can sense that Luke was nearby, it's that same concept. And Brennan had said that Obi-Wan shut himself off from the Force, and that's how they weren't able to sense him when they were in the same town, literally feet away from him. And then, like in the previous episodes where Reva was able to sense Obi because he had opened himself back up. So, I'm not gonna shy away from it, even though that makes sense. Brendan, well played.
Thanks.
I really like both of your guys' takes actually on as the show has been going on. Just listening to how you guys feel, and I think that's what's exciting about doing this podcast here is it's exciting to see what we think is going to happen. Seeing how some of that plays out, it's been fun.
Oh yeah.
To your point before you move forward, so Leia is Force sensitive. They make a comment in one of the movies, and I can't remember which one it was, and it's been a while since I've watched the 4, 5, and 6, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was, I don't even remember who made the comment. Anyways, they said that Luke wasn't the only option, right? And I don't remember the exact quote. Somebody's going to correct me eventually, but Leia also uses the Force in, 8? The 8th movie? So I know she is Force sensitive. Now, whether she'll use it as a child or not, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming based on kind of the way that they're going with this series that she will use it, but I think it'll be more accidental and not like, oh, suddenly Leia is going to become a Jedi, because we clearly know that she doesn't.
So I actually have some comments on how she's already used the Force in the series other than catching herself. And we'll get into that. There's something that happened in this episode that I want to point out later when we hit it.
Okay. From there, Obi-Wan hands her back a repaired Lola, which I just wanted to throw back. I shared this with you guys, but Amazon.com is already selling Lolas that you can buy.
See what I said about your take? Like,
yeah.
Immediately, as soon as it was repaired, I was like, oh my gosh, Brian's a genius.
It's
That's
the
exactly what they're doing.
Disneyfication of Star Wars. If we can make a profit by selling it, we're going to make it.
Yep.
So after that, Obi-Wan and Leia, the cargo ship, lands on the mining planet of Mapuzo, which is currently under Imperial control. Obi-Wan says it wasn't always like that, and that the Empire kind of ravaged it and destroyed the planet. Leia, in her innocence, says, I thought the Empire was supposed to help us. And Obi-Wan is like, well, there's still people out there trying to help us like your father, but it seems like a losing battle. And then we have a really cool moment where Obi-Wan pauses and he sees the ghost of Anakin Skywalker standing in the distance.
That was pretty impactful. It took me a couple times, like almost like as if I did a double take, even though my head's staring straight at the screen. I was like, is that Anakin? it is Anakin. Oh my goodness. So I thought that was crazy. But I also had a little comment to make about that scene. I thought it was odd that seemingly nobody who was an actual human seemed to be not being harassed by stormtroopers. And Obi-Wan and Leia are just walking casually across this mountain and field, and there's stormtroopers like yelling at people around them, and I'm like, nobody's gonna say anything to them. They're just gonna walk by.
Yeah. Up next, we kind of get a throwback to Jedi Fallen Order, which, have you guys played that video game?
I haven't. I want to.
I have, but it was forever ago, so I don't really remember it.
Okay, so we go to the Fortress Inquisitress, which is where the Inquisitors are kind of based out of. And this was first introduced in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. We get to see the building, so it was kind of cool to see them make like a live action version of it. Reva goes in and talks with the rest of the Inquisitors and says, I've traced the manifest. I know where Obi-Wan Kenobi is. He's in the mining system. We start to see this power struggle between Reva and the fifth brother, who uses the Force to subdue her. And I was like, oh man, it's about to go down. I'm like, let's get a Sith lightsaber fight going on. And Reva reveals that she's already spoken with Vader and that he's asked her to lead the hunt. And she basically throws out an ultimatum and she's like, send the protocol droids, send the probes, get them into the mining system, and let's find Obi-Wan. From there, we go back to Obi-Wan and Leia, and they're at the rendezvous point that they got sent to previously, and nobody's there. Leia, in the distance, sees a mining truck coming towards them, and she runs after it, hoping that they can kind of help, and she gets there, and we get introduced to this weird mole character named Freck, who, I googled this because I was so interested by Flea being from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Freck is Zach Braff.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Are
Yeah.
you serious?
I heard part of it and I was like, wait, is that Seth Rogen? But then I googled it and I was like, nope, it's definitely Zach Braff.
That's awesome.
Freck offers to give them both a ride. Leia jumps in the truck and Obi-Wan's like, we shouldn't be doing this. Like, this is a bad idea. And I was kind of hoping that he would make the comment like, I've got a bad feeling about this, because almost every single Star Wars property has that. And as he's jumping into the back of the truck, we see the Imperial flag as a bumper sticker on the back of the truck, essentially. And they jump on and they start driving towards the spaceport. On the way, Freck sees some hitchhiking stormtroopers and they're like, hey, we need to move down to this next point. Can you give us a ride? Freck said, sure, jump on in the back. So they're back there with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Leia, and they're like, what are you doing? And he goes, well, we're hunting a Jedi. And there's this really cool, tense scene that happens, and the stormtroopers look at them and they're like, you haven't seen any Jedis, have you? And Leia says, no, we're here because Kenobi wanted to show me where him and my mom met. And from there, they say, okay, what's your name? And Kenobi, I don't know what Kenobi says his name is. Do you guys remember?
Oh gosh, I don't.
We'll just say Jeff. So Kenobi says his name is Jeff, and Leia's name is Luma, which those two names go perfectly. And definitely not Jeff. But they basically say, have you seen a Jedi? And Leia begins to speak up, and Obi-Wan stops her and says, they know what they're doing, Leia, instead of calling her Luma.
Oops.
Yeah, big oops. The stormtroopers say, wait, you just said her name was Luma, and Obi-Wan says, sorry, her mother's name was Leia. I get confused. Like I said, sometimes I look at Luma and I see her mother's face. We miss her all so much. And stormtroopers, being stupid apparently in our galaxy, they buy it and they tell Freck to stop the truck. They leave, and then there's this fantastic scene between Leia and Obi-Wan where she realizes that Obi-Wan knew her real mother.
So this is where I kind of wanted to jump in and talk about how Leia's been using the Force to essentially almost read people's minds. And I think she's kind of just developing this skill, but I feel like she did it with her cousin. I'm not sure if it was the first or second episode, but she was basically telling her cousin, you act like your father. And she was like really diving deep into what her cousin was afraid of, saying, you're scared of your father. It's why you try to copy him. And she was really just kind of, I feel like, using the Force to dig deep into his mind. And then I feel like she's done it a couple times with Obi-Wan. When they were in the alley, she had made a comment to him about what he is scared of, and it's almost like she can sense their fears. And then I feel like, again, when Obi-Wan made the comment about calling her Leia, it's almost like, yes, he really said out loud, she reminds me of my mother, but I feel like she was using the Force once again to realize he knows more about me, like there's a deeper connection here. And I feel like that's her almost like baby using the Force.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's honestly a great theory. I didn't even think about it like that, but she does have this knack for reading people. So yeah, I think you're probably right on that. That it's like a force sensitive. I don't even know what they would call it. Force reading.
Yeah.
So one of the cool parts I thought about this whole scene was when Leia is like, I wish I knew my parents. I wish I could imagine what they were like. And Obi-Wan kind of says, hey, I can relate to that because when I was a child, I was taken from my family. He's like, I have brief memories of my mom. I have brief memories of my dad. And he goes, I'm pretty sure I had a baby brother, which made me start thinking. And I was like, are we going to get a baby Kenobi show? Like, man, let's see. Like, hopefully his brother's a Jedi and we can maybe get a future show where like Kenobi's brother is a Jedi or maybe he's a Sith. I think that'd be kind of a cool story to pursue.
Maybe it's Jar Jar Binks.
Ooh.
Who knows?
Dad was a Gungan. Mom was a human.
So one thing that I want to make a comment on. Shout out to my mom. She was very disappointed at us a couple episodes ago where both me and Brendan said, to your question, Bryant, would you become an Inquisitor if they turned to you? And we had both said, yeah, absolutely. We joined the Sith side. And she definitely called out you, B, with being like, yeah, you want me to take out some younglings? I got you. So
I said that was a joke.
With that, you have to understand, it almost seems messed up what the Jedi do. Because I never even once thought about where Obi-Wan came from. And the fact that he was telling her, yeah, I had a family, I had a mom. I remember, I think he said like my father's hands and my mother's dress or something like that. And then he made the comment about, I'm pretty sure I had a baby brother. And it's like, holy cow, he had this family and he was just ripped away from this family to become this Jedi Knight. And yeah, that's awesome and everything. But it's like, if you were to have that nowadays, where this wizarding cult is taking you away to teach the Force-sensitive children something, it's like, it's just crazy. You literally are taking them from their family. They don't know who their family. Who's the bad guy? I ask you that. Who's the bad guy?
Would you like to take this opportunity to apologize to Robbie's mom, Brendan?
No. Not even once. On that point, I think that you're absolutely right, and I'm pretty sure that Yoda makes a statement about the Jedi needing to change and evolve because they still do things, still did things before they fell, in like super old ways, like taking kids from their families and doing stuff like that. Like the Jedi definitely were not perfect. Like a lot of people just see the Jedi as like these ultimate good guys, but that's not even close to true. Are they better than the Sith generally? Yes. But are they also ultimate good? Not really.
It's almost like if you were to ask that question in a general format, like, all right, I'm going to ask you, which side do you think takes children when they're young and forces them to learn this way of, being connected with this thing called the Force and fighting with these laser swords? Would you think that was the good side doing that or the bad side doing that?
I mean, I think that's kind of one of the cool things about Star Wars is that whether you're on the Empire or whether you're on the Rebellion, both sides have a good and a bad side to them, right? It's never black and white. I think even like with the Rebellion, when you think about it, they're running into cities and blowing up buildings that are assigned to, the Imperial Post. And in the Imperial's eyes, those are terrorists. But, for the Rebellion, they're like, no, we're fighting the evil of the Empire. We're trying to overthrow this. And I think that's kind of always been the thing that I digged about Star Wars was kind of like the political complications that you get from the prequels. And then you kind of get them in, the last three as well. That it's like, are we really the good guys here? Or should we just accept the status quo like the rest of the galaxy and just be like, yeah, these guys are bad, but the other guys could be worse. Who are you going to replace that leader with?
Well, even on the transport ship, Leia had made a comment like, oh yeah, we love the Empire. And Freck was like, oh cool, like-minded people. We all could use a little bit of order. And it's like, it's interesting seeing how parts of the galaxy view the Empire. Some of them are like, yeah, no, it's fine. It's just a little bit of order. And the other ones are like, they're evil. They're trying to take over everything.
It's a necessary evil in the eyes of some planets. It's like, yes, they're bad, but hey, at least, we're not being run off by gangs or traders or, spice runners or stuff like that. Or at least we're not in slavery, different things like that. Yes, the Empire is bad, but now we have order on our planet. I think there's kind of an argument to be made on that end.
Well, I think there's kind of the thought that the Empire's not really that evil yet, right? Like, people don't really understand. It's only been 10 years since the Jedi fell, and whether they agreed with it or not, most of them, it's just a story, right? Nobody even knew the Jedis. Like, I'm pretty sure it was Robbie. You made a comment in the last episode that the Jedis were like myths, basically, to most people. And so the Jedi Temple falling, like, to them, I mean, did it change their life? Probably not much. I mean, it added a little bit more order to their planet. I don't think the Empire's really seen as evil until they start blowing up planets. And then people are like, yeah, what the F? Like, you shouldn't be doing that.
So next we find out that Zach Braff, Freck, is a good-for-nothing traitor. Freck leads the truck to an inspection point, and Obi-Wan's like, hey, what's going on here, Freck? And he's like, oh, don't worry, I know these guys. And he gets out, and he's like, oh, I found these scragglers out in the middle of the wilderness, and I brought them to you guys to look at. And the stormtroopers come to the back of the truck. They tell Obi-Wan and Leia to get out. Obi-Wan then, just like John Wayne coming out in the middle of a shootout, man, unbuckles his little blaster because he knows it's about to go down. The stormtroopers call in a protocol droid to inspect Obi-Wan's face, and as soon as it starts kind of scanning it, he blasts it out of the air and then starts having a shootout with the stormtroopers. And somehow, in the matter of a short cargo trip from this random planet across the galaxy to this mining system, Obi-Wan learns how to use a blaster, and he becomes the Liam Neeson of the scene and just starts taking down stormtroopers, and really, really awesome scene.
Now, did either of you hold your breath before he drew the weapon? Like, I wasn't sure if he was going to do the blaster or the
I thought it was
lightsaber.
going to be the lightsaber.
I thought so too. And then when he pulled out the blaster, I was like, damn it, Obi-Wan, you and that damn blaster. So
I'm telling you.
uncivilized.
He was closed off to the Force, and then he opened up, and now he can shoot, because now he's using his Force to help him aim.
Force aim.
Ah, there it is.
Force aim is a thing. It's canon.
Can we talk about how he shot that dude, that stormtrooper on the top, and he got cut in half by that laser
That was
gate?
such an awesome moment.
That was so sick. I was like, oh my god.
There's a lot of things that happened in this episode that I was like, that's not Star Wars, but I love it. Like, I'm all for it,
That
man.
was so good. It was great.
Now, after this whole kind of shootout goes down, Obi-Wan and Leia are able to escape. But then as soon as they get through the barricade, reinforcements show up. And they're like, get on your knees. And it literally looks like this is it for Obi-Wan and Leia. And then the commander comes out and pulls a kind of a little switcheroo and shoots the troopers. And it turns out that...
Shoots the troopers. Shoots the troopers. Did you realize, and I may be wrong, but I'm 90% sure that was the first female stormtrooper I ever heard.
I think that would be correct.
The straight up subtitles, it said female stormtrooper, and my daughter pointed it out, and I was like, what? What? I'd have never known any female stormtrooper other than Captain Phasma way in the freaking, like, 7th movie. Like, has there ever been a female stormtrooper?
Well, you see, the weird thing is, right, is like when you think about the original 3, those were always kind of like assumed to be men, right? Clones.
Yeah.
Well, they wouldn't have been clones. They would have been stormtroopers at that point. And then in the...
He's talking about 4,
Oh,
5,
4, 5, and
6.
6. Sorry, not the
Got
original
it.
3. In the prequels, they're clones, so they're all men. They're one guy. But then, like, in the original 3, when those came out, and I watched them as a kid, I always assumed that they were men. Maybe that's misogynistic. Maybe I'm a sexist for thinking that. And maybe, you know, the Empire is a lot more progressive than we all gave them credit for. But to your point, yeah, I mean, I've never seen a female stormtrooper up until this moment.
I thought it was crazy. I just was like, wow. Like, I just never seen that.
Representation. Way to go, Disney.
And back to them getting shot in the
Yeah,
back.
she shoots him in the back, and then it turns out that she was the one who was supposed to meet Kenobi at the rendezvous point, which I thought was kind of a nice little twist.
Really? I didn't catch that.
You didn't catch that?
No.
She straight up told him that.
Somehow didn't catch that.
Oh.
She said, I was supposed to meet you, but by the time I was running late, and by the time I showed up, you were already gone.
That was probably when me and my daughter were having a conversation about the female stormtrooper.
Probably.
Now, from there, we go back to Inquisitor's headquarters, and all the Inquisitors are standing around this table as they realize Kenobi is on this planet. Reva's like, I'm going to inform Lord Vader, and the 5th brother, you know, comes out, and he's like, no, I already have. Vader's already on his way. And I gasped at this moment that I was like, it's about to go down. I thought they were just going to send the Inquisitors, and the Inquisitors were going to kind of get in a little quarrel with Kenobi, and maybe they bring him to Vader. No, Vader's leaving the hellhole of Mustafar to go to this planet and take down Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yes.
Dang.
He's got a grudge to settle. It makes sense.
Well, if you left me on the burning side of a volcano and I was dying, can't say that I wouldn't have a grudge
Yeah.
either.
You go after that bad guy, Anakin.
Yeah.
You get him.
Now, Reva and the 5th brother, they kind of add to the tension here, and they say, we both know who will be at his side at the end of this. And again, going back to that master and apprentice thing I talked about earlier, I think, and this is just speculation, I don't know any spoilers, I think we're going to have a Sith lightsaber fight between Reva and the 5th brother.
Oh, that'd be cool.
probably. That also
that.
it brings back that same point about your Sith conversation earlier. I'm fairly certain that like Reva's trying to prove herself to become Vader's apprentice. Like right now, she's not considered a Sith. Like I think she's trying to become a Sith. Ultimately.
That's a fair point. So from there, we go back to Mapuzo, and Obi-Wan and Leia, they follow this Imperial commander to a hideout. And Leia expresses her regret for running away from her family in the beginning of this series. And she's like, I do it all the time, and I just didn't think this was going to happen. It was kind of one of those moments, it's like, yeah, a lot of things would be different right now if you didn't run away from your parents at the beginning of this show. And Obi-Wan kind of gives her some reassurance that says, you'll be home soon. And then from there, they're led into the hideout where we meet Ned. That might be one of the most intimidating robots in the Star Wars universe.
Ned B!
We find out that not only Ned, but also the Imperial Commander are part of the early stages of the Resistance. They enter into this room, which is part of the path, which are these safe houses that are across the kind of the galaxy and across the system. Very Underground Railroad vibes right here, where they were
That's what I wrote down.
Yeah, like where they're trying to sneak Jedis across, or sneak Force-sensitive people across the universe and bring them from place to place. And they're taking them to a place called Jabeam, which I've never heard of that planet before, and I assume we'll get that at some point in the series. But they basically say that they bring them to the planet of Jabeam, they give them new identities, and they send them on their way. We also learn that the Empire is now hunting anyone who is Force sensitive, not just Jedis, and it also includes children. And they go through this room and they see the signatures of everybody that's kind of come through the room or gone through this portion of the path. And Obi-Wan sees the name of Quinlan Vos, who, unless you're like a diehard Star Wars fan, you're probably not going to know who this person is. Quinlan comes from the comics. He was also in the Clone Wars animated series for like one episode, but I feel like this is an opportunity for Star Wars to reintroduce a character that they can possibly build like a live action series around in the future.
So one thing that I wanted to point out was the mother and son, I think it was the son, in the second episode that Hajo was quote unquote scamming. Is he part of this? Is he part of this little Jedi Underground Railroad that they call the Path? Like, was he a child maybe Force sensitive and that's why she was trying to get him out of there?
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
I would assume
it's
so.
definitely possible.
Also, do you guys know what Ned B stands for in that robot?
No.
Yeah, me either. I was hoping one of you knew.
Nice.
From there, we hear a knock on the door. The stormtroopers are going door to door, and they're trying to find a Jedi. They realize that they're looking for Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan and Tala are like, we need to leave. We need to kind of move ahead the timeline and get to the ship and get you off this planet. From there, we find out that the Imperial commander, her name is Tala, and she joined the Empire when it stood for something. That was kind of her excuse for being a part of the bad guys. But now she is part of this brand new resistance. Tala leads Leia and Obi-Wan to the tunnel, and from there we have this epic moment where Obi-Wan senses the presence of his apprentice and almost falls over out of pain, and we're taken to outside of the village where the Inquisitors, stormtroopers, everyone's standing on this street, and then you hear, and you just see Vader walking down and coming to the front of the street.
So badass. I was so excited. I was like, oh my god, he's walking down the street. Oh my god, he's going to find him. Like, I was just super hyped in that moment. And I was just waiting to see what was going to happen next.
And it only gets crazier, because Vader begins to walk down the street, force choking people on his left, throwing people out of windows on his right, snapping the literal neck of a child in the middle of a street. And this was one of those moments that when it happened, I was like, oh! And my wife literally just, her jaw dropped as well.
It's so dark, and like, it's that type of Vader that you feel like you've heard about but haven't seen, and the fact that they showed that was just insane. And it's almost like she took a page out of Reva's book of just, hey, I'm just going to start snapping necks and force choking people till Obi-Wan shows up.
Well, I also think that it's very surprising for Disney. Like, it's one thing that if they would have, like, pulled the camera away and made, like, a neck snap noise to, like, say, like, hey, he just snapped the neck of that person. You literally see the neck snap sideways. And it was just so insane. Now, I don't know about you guys. I assume he's doing this to draw Obi-Wan Kenobi out. You guys agree?
Oh, absolutely. That's what I felt like he was doing that for. Because I felt like he almost was walking around, and I think he even looked in Obi-Wan's direction before he started doing that. And I think that's why is he was trying to draw him out.
Brendan, as the expert Sith who enjoys taking down child Jedi, I mean, would you do the same thing in that situation?
I mean, I think it was a perfect plan because, I mean, as a true Jedi, they can only take so much before they have to try to intervene. And Reva made that very clear when she threw the knife, right? I mean, that kid wasn't even a full-fledged Jedi, and he still brought himself out of hiding to save that person. So, I don't know. And I'm going to preface this by saying I don't condone what Vader did. Okay? I don't. But I was so happy to see Vader being evil. Like, I made a comment before we started recording, and I'm going to kind of remake that comment now. We don't ever really get to see evil Darth Vader, right? You get the point where he starts to turn evil, then he quote-unquote dies. Then 30 years later, you get Vader in the old movies, right? And yeah, he chokes a few people and does a few things, and he's feared. But we don't ever really see that fear. Like after that,
I was gonna say, didn't you see Rogue One?
I did, and in Rogue One it was great too. That was my favorite scene in Rogue One because again, you truly see the fear of Vader, right? And that street scene was incredible because it truly showed that Anakin is gone. Like, that's why I liked it. Not because of what he was doing to the people, but at this point, there is no Anakin. Like, he is now full-fledged Darth Vader. He doesn't care. He does what he wants and kills whoever he wants because he can.
I made a note that one of the big takeaways I had from this was that, like, Vader is still one of the most menacing villains in cinema. That if you go back in time and you look at like movies that also released around the time or in that time period of Hollywood, like for example, like King Kong, right? Like during the time when King Kong came out, it was claymation, and we look at that now and we're just like, yeah, that's cute. But back then, it was truly terrifying because nobody had ever seen anything like that. And
definitely,
you take some of those characters from the past and you put them in movies now, Frankenstein, The Mummy, horror villains, and they don't hold up. Vader in this scene, I have never felt fear like I did. It reminded me like I was a kid again watching this, and I was just like, how am I a 32-year-old adult and I'm still terrified of this individual? Obi-Wan tells Tala to get Leia to the ship and forget going to Jabim, go straight to Alderaan. He's like, I'm going to buy us time. And, he goes out on the street, he tries to distract Vader, and then Vader senses Obi-Wan, looks over there, and he's gone. We show up onto this sand mine kind of looking area, and Vader and Obi-Wan come face to face. Vader draws his lightsaber and turns it on. Obi-Wan stands in front of him, grabs his lightsaber, and I'm like, whew, we've been waiting for this moment. We're gonna get it.
Lightsaber fight, baby!
And then
heck yeah!
He doesn't turn it on. He just runs away.
Runs.
And we get this horror moment that I confessed how much I loved it when Reva did it. But Obi-Wan's in hiding, and Vader's like, Obi-Wan, you can run, but I'm gonna find you. And basically menacing, just talking to him. And then Obi-Wan finally comes face to face with Vader, and he drops the line saying, what have you become? And Vader says, I am what you made me. And I thought that was the most powerful line of the episode. I was like, holy crap. And just when you think the lightsabers are about to go off, Obi-Wan runs off into the distance. Now, from there...
I was so scared of Brendan's take about them like never having a lightsaber fight, because I was so hyped when Vader's just standing there, just lightsaber drawn out to the side, and he's just staring at Obi-Wan. And I was like, yes, it's about to go down. Lightsaber fight, like we talked about. And then Obi-Wan just ran away. I was like, oh my god, no. I was like, Brendan's going to be right. It's never going to happen. Yeah. They're never going to fight.
Yeah, George Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy are like, we just don't have the budget for a lightsaber fight. We go back to the village. The Inquisitors and the Stormtroopers are searching for other Jedi, and Reva uncovers the safe room that Leia and Obi-Wan were hiding in, and she sees the Jedi symbols on the wall and begins to freak out. And that's when she discovers the hidden tunnel where Tala and Leia are running to the spaceship. We go to the tunnel, and Leia...
Whoa. There was a scene, well, there wasn't a scene, there was a moment in that scene that I think is really important.
Okay.
And it's the symbol that was carved into the wall that Reva stopped at before she went into the tunnel.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know how we had the conversation about them turning Jedi into Inquisitors. I think that Reva was a Jedi candidate originally. And I think that she knows whoever carved that symbol into that wall.
Ooh.
So I had read something, and I think this is also just speculation, but when we talked in the first episode about those younglings that we saw as part of the temple, somebody made a comment that they believe Reva was one of those younglings.
Yeah, and that's definitely possible. There was a reason they showed those younglings. So
That does tie again a lot to what you were saying, B.
yeah, I mean, it makes makes what I was saying even more powerful.
Yeah.
Good point.
Good point.
Those were
B.
all Jedis that carved into their names and stuff into that wall, or their symbols in that case, and she recognized that symbol. So
Yeah.
I absolutely think that she was a Jedi candidate.
You guys took that way deeper than me because I just thought it was like the Jedi logo, and she just got mad. She's like sees a Nike logo on the wall, and she's like,
That's the bad side.
I'm an
That's
Adidas
the bad
fan.
team. I don't like that.
Maybe she's secretly a good guy, and the whole point of her trying to get close to Vader is because she wants to kill Vader for killing her friends.
Ooh,
Oh, dang.
that would be
Plot twist.
yeah.
I'm just saying, if that turns out to be true, you heard it here first.
I mean, clearly can't kill Vader because there's other movies with him
Yeah,
after.
but she could
you know,
try.
yeah, very true.
What? No, I'm not gonna say. I was gonna say, what if that
You were gonna
was?
say do or do not. There is no choice.
No, I was gonna say like, how crazy of an ending would that be if like Vader died at the end of this, and we're just like, what the? he comes back. How is that an ending?
Somehow Vader returns.
Exactly. Yeah. So we jump into the tunnel, and Tala and Leia are there, and Leia's like, "Yo, Tala, you need to go help Obi-Wan. He's way too
Yo.
old for this fight. He's gonna die. Like, I can make it on my own. Go help Obi-Wan." And Tala's like, it's not gonna happen. And then we go back to the sand mines, and we see exactly why Obi-Wan needs the help, because he's walking.
Quick, is that the same actress, B, that is the mother of the Sand Snakes from Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Are they just bringing everybody from Game of Thrones over to Star Wars? Because they had Brienne of Tarth, who was Captain Phasma. They had Prince Oberon, who became Mandalorian. Like, they're just bringing everybody over.
That's Oberyn's concubine, or that's what she
Yeah.
played in Game of Thrones.
So is, like, Peter Dinklage going to come and be an Ewok?
Hot takes from Robbie.
No. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go on.
No,
Frank.
I've never seen Game of Thrones, so
Oh, what?
yeah, I've seen one episode, and it had like
not worth it.
brothers and sisters going at it in
It's
a
not worth
bedroom, and
it.
I was like, oh, this isn't a show for me.
Spoiler: ending sucks.
That's-
Don't watch that show.
That's what happens, right? The final season, I was like, I'll wait for it to all be over, and then I'll watch it. And then I was talking to Brendan, and he's like, it was the worst show of all time. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to watch it now.
We'll talk about that on our Game of Thrones podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Stay tuned. So we get back to the sand mine. Vader sneaks up behind Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we get our first lightsaber clash between Vader and Obi-Wan. And Vader mops the mother effing floor with Obi-Wan. And Vader basically calls him out and starts talking smack. And he says, the years have made you weak.
You made a comment that you felt like they were going to have a battle, and you said Vader was just going to absolutely demolish him in a lightsaber fight. So when that was happening, I just remember you making that comment.
Well, I think a lot of it was just from the fact that, like, okay, we're 10 years later, right? Obi-Wan has turned himself off to the Force, so we assume. He's not training with a lightsaber. He's not doing anything. The entire 10 years, we have to assume that Vader has been learning how to use this suit, how to use his new body, and he's training with revenge. Like, I think Reva has said that he's been hunting for you for a long time, which makes us assume that Vader's been killing Jedi trying to find Obi-Wan Kenobi. So you're coming from like a really inexperienced Jedi to someone who's like, nah, I'm ready to kill you. And I think that was kind of where I was getting that from. And when I saw it, I was like, yes, it's going. But we go to somewhere where I'm like, ooh, that's not where I wanted this to end. But I do have one question for you guys. Do the lightsabers look different in this show than any other Star Wars movie?
I mean, I feel like every time there's new technology,
Mhm.
obviously it's CGI, so it probably looks a little different. I didn't really catch that. I didn't really pay attention to that, but I definitely will in the next episodes coming up. But
I don't know if it was just because it was like such a dark environment, but it felt like the lightsabers emitted like more light in a scene than I've ever seen in a Star Wars show.
Well, I think they were doing that on purpose to try to keep it ominous.
Mhm.
yeah, if you're referring to that, the lighting definitely, I noticed that a lot because I was even looking at like the shadows on the ground and stuff from the lightsabers and the lighting, which I thought they did a good job on. The one thing I think they did a terrible job on was how was Obi-Wan escaping Darth Vader for a moment in time by just briskly walking. Like, he wasn't running, he was just briskly walking. He just like turns around, Vader's not there, as if he was as if he knew he wasn't there. I was like, what are you
See, I took
fighting for
that.
your life?
I took, and Brendan, as the resident Sith, you can correct me, but I took that as Vader playing with his food. Like he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill you, so run like you will." But we know how this is gonna end.
That's how I took it as well. I took it as
my robot leg.
Vader wanted to have his sweet, sweet revenge.
And boy, does he, right? So we go back to the tunnel, and Tala agrees to help Obi-Wan, and she says, keep following this tunnel. You're going to meet a pilot, and he will basically take you to where we need to go. We jump back into the sand mine. The lightsaber battle continues between Vader. He continues dominating. Obi-Wan throws out a line, you should have killed me when you had a chance. And Vader then does something that I was like, oh man, you probably could have done this to begin with. Force chokes Obi-Wan. And just holds him in position and just like choking the life out of him. And then he pulls the coals underneath him, which are like in a barrel down the line. And then he takes his lightsaber and lights these coals on fire. And you just have this giant blaze. And Vader says, now you will suffer, Obi-Wan. And then throws him into the fire and begins to force drag him through the fire, burning him alive. Roll credits. The show's over.
Not true. That would be great.
What if that was the ending of the episode?
I was like, wait a
second.
second. Did you not finish it? I was so confused for a second.
I loved how he ignited those coals with the lightsaber. I thought that was so badass, and just force dragging him through the fire and just making him feel the pain that he had felt, Anakin had felt when he was left on Mustafar, was just so symbolic. And it was just, you could just tell Vader was just relishing in that moment and just loving, like he had been thinking of that the past 10 years, that, like you said, Obi-Wan just left him there to die, and he was just watching him burn in the coals. I just thought it was so crazy.
Vader puts out the fire and tells the stormtroopers to go grab Obi-Wan. And this is where Tala comes in, shoots one of the stormtroopers, and then, kind of odd, reignites the fire that Obi-Wan is just stuck in. Which I was like, wait, how is she preventing the fire from getting to Obi-Wan? But
no, when Vader put out the fire, he pushed Obi-Wan back out of the fire.
Okay.
When he put it out with the Force, he literally, like, the Force pushed Obi-Wan back farther away.
That makes sense now, because I was like, wait, how is he not burning? I was just like, okay, yeah.
That's not helpful.
So then Ned, OG robot, comes in and rescues Obi-Wan, and Tala gets a hold of them, and she's like, we need to get to Jabim. Now, show's not over yet, because we get to the tunnel where Leia is still running to the ship. She reaches to the ship, and we hear a voice in the distance, and it's later revealed that it's Reva, and she has killed all the pilots, and she's now standing in front of Princess Leia. Leia realizes she's in trouble. She runs, Reva chases, and for real this time, roll credits.
How the hell did she get there before her? I don't understand that.
I assume there was multiple ways. That's the only thing that makes sense, but I thought that exact same thing. But before we skip over that, I just want you guys to know that Vader let him get away.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to ask you how you guys felt about that, because he clearly just allowed him to leave. Like, he could have force grabbed him. He could have put out the fire. He could have done anything. Like the stormtroopers.
He could have walked through the fire in his suit. He probably would have been fine.
His suit's flame retardant because he doesn't want to go through that again.
But like, I think that it's very much like he wants to savor killing him. And he was like, let the hunt continue, and he let him go.
He's enjoying the hunt, you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was so crazy how fearful Obi-Wan was of him as well. Just the whole time, you could tell he was just scared. He was fighting scared. Like, any chance he took to run, he was running. And I mean, it's probably the best decision for him, but...
We got to think about his mental state. He killed his best friend and Padawan, and for 10 years he dealt with that information, that he killed his best friend and Padawan. And then 2 days ago, somebody told him that he's still alive. He freaked out, and now 2 days later, he's standing right in front of you trying to kill you. Like, I'd probably be a little bit freaked out too if that was me. I'd be like, well, for 10 years, I thought this guy was dead, and I've been watching his son like a creep, and now here he is trying to kill me.
Do you guys think we get a second lightsaber fight?
Oh, absolutely.
With Twin Vader and Obi-Wan?
Yeah.
I foresee, and once again, speculation here, I foresee Force Ghost Qui-Gon coming in, and basically, Obi-Wan is basically saying like, hey, I can't get to Leia, I don't know where she's at. Force Ghost Qui-Gon's like, you need to saddle up, man. And we get like an epic training, like Rocky, like, Da-na-na-na.
There you go.
And he's just
I don't
he's like
foresee
swinging
any of those.
lightsabers, running upstairs, and he's like, Adrian! And
You just see Qui-Gon force ghosting with the telecom, and he's like, I will find you. I will find you, Leia. I have a very special set of skills.
I've been meaning to tell you guys this. I've been playing the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, and there's Lego Qui-Gon, and you play as him. And one of his quips is he's like, I have a very special set of skills.
Genius.
Closing thoughts. What do you guys got?
Well, we talked about there being an epic lightsaber battle, and it's happened. It happened a lot sooner than I thought it was going to happen.
I don't know if I'd use the word epic, but I agree.
Spoken like a true Sith.
About?
Right
Like
there.
the whole scene was epic. Like,
I just don't like when they bang lightsabers like they're sticks. It drives me nuts.
you have to think though, Darth Vader, that's how he fought. I mean, you watch the 4, 5, and 6, and I mean, he can't be as nimble as he is as a human because he's got, robotic legs and arms. Like,
Yeah.
pretty much just had to be power, and that's really. I actually thought they did a great job of showing that he's not nimble like Anakin was as a fighter. That he was using almost like brute force when he was fighting Obi-Wan with the lightsabers. Like he was fighting just like.
Oh yeah, he was
watching
beating on it like it was a club. Obi-Wan had to literally turn his wrist to hold the lightsaber back. I don't know if you saw it, but he crossed his wrist to hold it just to get enough power to keep the lightsaber away from him.
Yeah, it was crazy. One thing that I want to point out is Darth Vader, especially in these, like in Rogue One and in the Disney series, he has red lenses on his eyes. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, I always thought they were just straight black. And so I found out that they had red lenses in A New Hope, but I guess there's a scene where you can see the actor's eyes.
Mm.
And so they decided to switch it to black for Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. But the reason why Disney and Rogue One and everything is keeping the red lenses now is because in A New Hope he had red lenses. So they're trying to make it, like you said, keeping everything together as canon. So
Interesting.
you're going to continue to see him with red lenses because of that.
The other final statement I want to make is this show continues to get better and better and better.
Agreed.
I'm so excited for more.
We have 6 episodes of the show, and I'm starting to believe that 6 episodes might be the perfect length for Star Wars TV shows.
Yeah, I felt like with Book of Boba Fett, I don't remember how many they had for that one, but it was kind of rough in the beginning. The end of the season got better, but Mandalorian, I really enjoyed all of them. So we'll see. I feel like they're doing a really, really, really good job on this one so far. It's definitely been awesome, and I've really, truly loved every episode so far.
I'm going to say that I'm pleasantly surprised with how great this series is. Because as much as I've wanted a Kenobi series, I didn't know what they would do with it. And I almost want them to do, we're starting to see the PTSD after the fact Kenobi. And I want to see more of pre-Kenobi again. And honestly, I might just go back and watch the first 3 movies again because there's so many good things that it just keeps reminding me of how he's so terrified now. But think back in the movie when he just leaps out in front of an army of people at General Grievous. He had no fear, and he's just changed so much as a character. And I think that they're portraying that so well in this series, and I'm just excited for the rest of it.
I think that's it for the episode, guys. Thank you all for listening once again. Before we close out, Brendan, last chance to apologize to Mama Rice.
No, go Vader.
All right.
How dare you?
Thank you all so much for listening to this week's episode of the Kenobi Cast. My name is Bryant. Joined with me are Robbie and Brendan. Until next time, we will hear you in the next podcast.
May the Force be with you.
Kenobi! Kenobi!